Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Bahasham, Barakahakwadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and in this video, I'll be profiling an article from endoftheamericandream.com titled, "Most Americans Don't Know About the New Nuclear Weapons Russia Has Developed Since the End of the Cold War." And Russia is going to use these nuclear weapons we're about to read about in this article against the United States of America. It's all a part of biblical prophecy. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. One woe or destruction is past, referring to World War I. And behold, there come two woes more hereafter. World War II, which is past, and World War III, which is quickly coming upon us. And the two main combatants of this third woe is going to be the United States of America, which is biblically known as Babylon the Great, as well as spiritual Sodom and Egypt as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8, and Russia, which is known as the North Country in Jeremiah 50, verse 9, Gog in Ezekiel chapter 38, and the spiritual Medes in Isaiah chapter 13. So as we can see, World War III is a part of biblical prophecy, and it will go nuclear. This is 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10, and the header reads, "A new heaven and a new earth. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise." And those heavens are referring to this current age passing away, because in the scriptures, heaven and hell can refer to a condition. Heaven when you're in rulership, and hell when you're in slavery and captivity. And the biblical Edomites, who are known as the so-called white people today, are in their heavens or rulership. And the true children of Israel, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, are in their hell. But when these nuclear missiles begin to fly to the ends of the earth, that's when these current heavens or rulership of the Edomites is going to pass away, and the heavens of the children of Israel is going to begin with the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven. And you Edomites and other heathen nations are going to be in your hell. 1,000 years of hardcore bondage and slavery building up the kingdom of heaven. And the other heathen nations after that 1,000 years will be able to return to their lands, though they'll still be under our subjection through the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai. But after that first 1,000 years, every single Edomite man, woman, and child will be gathered up and permanently cold from this planet with fire. And the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. And what's going to melt the elements with fervent heat and burn up the works in the earth? These nuclear weapons, which we're about to read about in that article on endoftheamericandream.com. Verse 11, "Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved by nuclear fire, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness?" And if you're an Israelite that's woken up to the fact that you are an Israelite and are doing whatever you can to come back to the good graces of your power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai, so you can hope to be of that elect number and be saved from these nuclear calamities, along with all these other calamities coming of Jacob's trouble, the manner of person you should be in is, as it says in verse 12, looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of the Most High. We should be hastening for these nukes to fly, because we know that once that happens, and Abarak Dazam, myself, and you sincere Akim and Akwath are of that elect number to be saved, we know that the kingdom of heaven and our eternal rulership comes next. Looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of the Most High, wherein the heavens, being on fire, shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Again, that fervent heat from those nuclear missiles. Now let's get back into this article. Again, most Americans don't know about the new nuclear weapons Russia has developed since the end of the Cold War. Even though war has erupted in Ukraine, most Americans still do not believe that a nuclear war with Russia is a serious threat. And hey, it's the main threat, and Russia is actually going to prevail against the United States of America. The United States of America is going to be hit with 200 million nuclear missiles, which is going to turn it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. The Cold War doctrine of mutually assured destruction has been pounded into our heads so many times that most people simply assume that it would be unthinkable for either side to attempt a nuclear strike. That may have been true in the 1980s, but things have changed dramatically since that time. We're living in the last seconds of the last days, the last seconds of the rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, before the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven. The 1980s weren't that time. The Russians have developed some extremely impressive weapons and anti-missile systems since the end of the Cold War, but most Americans don't even know that they exist. Let's start with the RS-28 Sarmat. While the U.S. still relies on hopelessly outdated Minuteman III missiles that first went into service in 1970, the Russians have developed the most advanced intercontinental ballistic missiles on the entire planet. The RS-28, sometimes known as the Satan II, has been in development since 2014 and was famously described as capable of wiping out parts of the earth the size of Texas or France by Russia's state-owned media. The missile has a range of 6,385 miles and carries a warhead jam-packed with multiple independent re-entry vehicles, MIRV, that boast a combined destructive yield of 50 megatons. And this makes much more sense when we say that 200 million nuclear missiles are going to hit the United States. To the average person, that may seem like a lot, but remember, one warhead on one of these missiles is filled with multiple warheads. In other words, the RS-28 Sarmat carries a destructive yield greater than 35 times that of the Minuteman III. America's most powerful nuclear bomb in service, the B-83, also boasts just a 1.2 megaton yield, and even the most powerful nuclear weapon in American history, the 9 megaton B-53, rings in at less than 1/5 the yield of the mighty Sarmat. The U.S. military has no way to defend against the Sarmat. The Russians also have developed a very alarming line of hypersonic missiles that we have no way to defend against. In fact, the Russians just released footage of the Zircon hypersonic nuclear missile, which can travel at speeds of up to 7,000 miles per hour. Meanwhile, the U.S. is way behind both the Russians and Chinese. The Chinese are also going to shoot nuclear missiles onto America when it comes to developing hypersonic missiles. But if the Russians were to hit the U.S. with a surprise first attack, they would probably utilize their black hole submarines. The mainstay of the Russian Navy's conventionally powered fleet are Project 877 class submarines, known as the Kilo class to NATO and the West. Nicknamed the Black Hole Submarine by the U.S. Navy, the improved Kilos are extremely quiet. The class has been built more or less continuously for 30 years, a testament to their effectiveness at sea. The Black Hole submarines were designed to be as quiet as possible, and that makes them ideal for a sneak attack. A lot of silencing went into the Kilos. The hull is described as having the approximate shape of a drop of water and greatly reducing water resistance over old World War II era submarine designs. The propulsion plant is isolated on a rubber base so it doesn't touch the hull, preventing vibrations from turning into noise that can be heard outside the boat. The ship has a rubbery anechoic coating to deaden noise emanating from the submarine, which occasionally gives the submarine a blocky appearance, noticeable in photographs. The air regeneration system can keep the crew supplied with oxygen for up to 260 hours, giving the ship almost 2 weeks worth of underwater endurance. These submarines have the ability to sneak up to our coastlines without us even realizing that they are there, and once they launch their missiles, we would only have a few moments to respond. As terrifying as that sounds, many experts are even more concerned about a submarine-launched weapon known as Poseidon. Unlike the submarine-launched nuclear missiles both Russia and the United States maintain as part of their nuclear triads, the Status 6, sometimes called Poseidon, or by its NATO designation of Kanyan, is actually a submersible drone. Once deployed by a Russian Navy submarine, the drone can travel autonomously towards its target, covering more than 5,400 miles at a depth of as low as 3,300 feet. Once it finds its target, the Status 6 simply parks and waits for the command to detonate. We would never see the Poseidon coming. Theoretically, the Russians could deploy Poseidons to all our major coastal cities and detonate them all simultaneously. Just take a few moments to think about what that would mean. And it has been reported that some Russian officials have said the Poseidon can be equipped with a 100 megaton weapon. On board this submersible drone is an absolutely massive warhead, with some claims saying it carries the same nuclear yield as the RS-28, and others claiming twice that. According to some Russian officials, the Status 6 can be equipped with a 100 megaton weapon, which is 2 times more powerful than the largest nuclear weapon ever even tested. A detonation of that magnitude would not only destroy and irradiate a massive area, its positioning underwater would result in a radioactive tsunami that would reach far further inland than the blast itself. In no uncertain terms, the Status 6 is intended to serve as a doomsday weapon, a judgment day weapon. It's the sort of weapon you build not to win wars, but to end them. Such a weapon could destroy New York City in the blink of an eye, and best believe that New York City, along with all these other cities and places in the United States of America from the West Coast and the East Coast, will be destroyed by these new nuclear weapons that the Russians have been creating. It's all through the will of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to bring about this third woe and melt the elements with fervent heat and burn up the works in the earth. As it says in Isaiah 55 verse 11, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please. And let's get back into these precepts. This is Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 9. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, Babylon the Great, the virgin daughter of Babylon, the United States of America, an assembly of great nations from the north country being Russia, because what's north of the United States of America? You've got Canada, that Arctic Ocean region, and then Russia. And I've done a few videos in the past showing that Russia has been building up its military capabilities, nuclear included, in that Arctic Ocean region. And as we saw in that article, Russia has submarines and submersible drones that are capable of parking themselves on all the coastlines of the United States of America to shoot nukes onto the United States of America. And that assembly of great nations unto the north country are not only Russia's allies like China, Iran, and North Korea, but also America's own allies such as Britain, France, Germany, and these other NATO nations that are going to turn against her at some point during World War III and ally themselves with that north country, Russia, to altogether shoot those 200 million nuclear missiles onto the U.S. As it says in Revelation chapter 17, verse 16, and the 10 horns referring to the EU or European Union, which thou sawest upon the beast being NATO, these shall hate the whore, the United States of America, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, nuclear fire. And they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. And those arrows are symbolic for those nuclear missiles, because when the prophets saw these visions thousands of years ago, they didn't know what a Satan II, the Poseidon submersible drone, or nuclear missiles or anything like that was. So they described it the best way they could with what they knew during their times. Ancient weapons of war, like bows and arrows, spears, javelins, flying swords, etc., etc. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. Now I'm going to close it out in Isaiah chapter 13, verses 17 to, I'll go to 22. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, the spiritual Medes, the Russians, that north country, also Gog in Ezekiel 38, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. When the time comes for the Most High to put the Spirit on those Russians to push that red button, nothing will stop them from doing so. And we can already see right now with Russia's military campaign in Ukraine, they're not regarding the silver and gold of the West or the U.S. Hey, they're not concerned with all these sanctions that have been put over them due to their military operation in Ukraine. They're moving more towards economic and military ties with China, and they're creating systems that go behind the SWIFT system. They're creating digital currencies and have built up their assets in gold and silver. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces. And what do bows shoot? Arrows. These are the missile silos and other launch platforms that these nuclear missiles are going to be fired from. They shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. Every man, woman, and child, young and old in the United States of America that isn't of that elect number of the nation of Israel that are going to get beamed up onto the chariots when those nuclear missiles hit this place are going to be fuel for the fire. No one shall escape. And Babylon, the United States of America, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And how did the Most High overthrow ancient Sodom and Gomorrah? With fire and brimstone from the sky. And like I said earlier in the video, besides being known as Babylon in the scriptures, the United States of America is also known as spiritual Sodom in Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8. So the Most High is going to overthrow this modern day Sodom and Gomorrah with modern fire and brimstone, those 200 million nuclear missiles. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. And this shows us that this isn't talking about ancient Babylon, which is in modern day Iraq. You can clearly see people are still dwelling there to this day. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. After the nuclear missiles hit this place and the dust settles, it's going to become a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland where only desert creatures will dwell in after a time. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there, and the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. And if you have that spiritual eyesight, you can clearly see the days of the end of Babylon the Great. The United States of America are very near to come, and her days are no longer being prolonged. In the news, even in the mainstream news, you're hearing more and more about the possibility of a nuclear conflict between Russia and the United States of America. And the Passover just passed, and we know that after the Passover, things always heat up. And Apostle Tahar has deemed 2022 to be the year of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai turning things up. So expect things to turn up accordingly. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong, as we can clearly see, we're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.